We dive deep into real-life crime stories, peeling back the layers of mysteries that have haunted the world for years. From chilling unsolved cases to shocking investigations, we leave no stone unturned. With every video, we bring you the raw truth. No shortcuts, no fluff, just the facts you need to understand what really happened. If you're ready to uncover the dark, untold truths and explore the cases that remain unchanged, hit that subscribe button. My name is Greg, and welcome to Unchanged.
The night of November 3, 1978, was supposed to be just like any other. Theresa Allore, a young woman full of ambition and hope, left her friend's apartment in Lennoxville, Quebec, to head back to her own. She was a student at Champlain College, known for her kindness and her bright smile. But that night, Theresa never made it home. What happened to her, in the cold streets of Lennoxville, remains a question that still haunts the town to this day. Weeks passed without a trace of Theresa. Then her body was found. But the answers the investigators sought were nowhere to be found. The crime scene was eerily quiet, no immediate signs of foul play. For decades, the case was left unresolved. Her family left in anguish, never knowing what had happened to her. But in the 1980s, something changed. Someone decided to revisit the case, and with that decision came an unexpected discovery, one that would uncover a chilling connection to a series of other mysterious disappearances. What if Theresa's death wasn't the tragic loss of one promising life, but the beginning of a pattern that was missed? What if her death, ignored and forgotten by so many, was linked to something far darker than anyone could have predicted? Stay with me as we unravel this forgotten mystery, the murder of Theresa Allore, and the shocking revelations that followed. Theresa Allore was 19, a bright college student in Lennoxville, Quebec. She had dreams of one day becoming a social worker, helping those who needed it most. Her friends describe her as kind-hearted, always there to lend a hand or offer a word of encouragement. She was the kind of person everyone wanted to be around. With a natural talent for making others feel heard, it's no wonder she had so many people in her corner. Theresa wasn't just any student. She was someone who had her entire future ahead of her. But one fateful night, that future was snatched away. Theresa was last seen leaving her friend's apartment at around 11 p.m. She made her way down the familiar path toward her own apartment. She had done it countless times before, but this time was different. It was the last time anyone would ever see her alive. Her parents, devastated, filed the missing persons report when she didn't show up the next day. But it would be weeks before anyone found her. Theresa's body was found near a wooded area in Sherbrooke, just a short distance from Lennoxville. It was cold, her body discarded in the wilderness, left to be discovered by someone who would never know the answers to the questions she had left behind. The authorities initially ruled it as an undetermined cause of death, and the case quickly went cold. What had happened to her in those final moments, and why had no one seen anything? The theory at the time was that Theresa might have run away. Her friends and family were horrified at this idea. It didn't make sense. She had no reason to leave her life behind. Another theory emerged. Could this have been the work of a stranger, a random attack on a young woman walking home alone in the dark? The investigation led nowhere. But the more the case was examined, the more it became clear there was something missing. Someone was watching her. Someone knew where she was, and someone had planned this. But who? Theresa's last moments are etched in the memories of those who were closest to her. She had enjoyed a normal evening with friends, laughed with them, and made plans for the next day. There was nothing unusual about that evening. She wasn't fearful, she wasn't in a hurry. She simply left, made her way down the street, and that was it. It should have been a peaceful walk home, a walk she had made countless times. But as she walked those familiar streets, someone was waiting for her. A neighbor later reported seeing a man parked near Theresa's apartment that evening. He was described as acting strangely, pacing, and looking toward the building, but no one thought much of it at the time. But now, years later, with the case reopened, that witness's account took on a darker meaning. Was this man someone who had seen Theresa? Was this the first sign of something much worse than anyone realized? At first, the authorities were baffled. No clear signs of violence, no fingerprints, and no suspect. They speculated that Theresa had run away. Maybe a miscommunication, maybe something impulsive. But deep down, her family knew that wasn't the case. She had no reason to leave. It was then that the first theory that hinted at foul play began to surface. Theresa had been targeted by someone who knew her route, who knew she would be alone. Was someone she knew involved? Did Theresa have a secret, something that made her a target? The more the police dug into her past, the more they began to wonder. Was someone close to her hiding something? A former lover, a fellow student, or perhaps even someone on campus? It was a chilling thought, that someone Theresa trusted might have been the one to end her life. In the 1980s, the case was revisited, thanks to the tireless work of investigators who believed there was more to the story. This time, forensic methods had advanced, and new techniques allowed the police to re-examine Theresa's remains and the evidence found at the scene. It was during this renewed investigation that a breakthrough came. New DNA analysis revealed traces of something that hadn't been detected before, an unknown substance. This discovery pointed to someone familiar with the area, someone who had been in control. And then came the shock. The more they dug, the more they uncovered a disturbing pattern. Other young women, some who had disappeared around the same time in surrounding areas, had been found dead under remarkably similar circumstances. These women had been forgotten, their deaths dismissed as unrelated. But now it seemed they were tied together in a way that no one had realized. Could the same killer be behind these crimes? One witness, who had remained silent for years, came forward in the 1980s. She recalled seeing a man near the woods where Theresa's body was found. This man, she said, had been acting strangely, lurking in the shadows. Was he the killer? Or did he know more than he was letting on? The more theories surfaced, the more unsettling the case became. One suspect stood out. A man from the campus community who had been known to frequent the area. Police later learned that he had been in the vicinity when Theresa went missing. But there was no proof, just suspicion. As the investigation dragged on, more questions emerged, but no answers. Was this the work of a lone killer? Or was there more to this than anyone was willing to admit? Despite years of renewed investigations and a handful of new theories, Theresa's murder remains unsolved. While the revived investigation uncovered new clues, the killer was never brought to justice. The haunting reality is that the police were never able to connect all the dots. The pieces were there, but they never quite fit. And for those who love Theresa, the pain of not knowing who did this or why will never go away. Experts believe that the person who killed Theresa had been operating undetected for years, moving between different cities, striking in similar patterns. Could there be more victims? More unsolved cases? If only the police had known what to look for, if only they had connected these dots earlier, could the killer have been caught? Was Theresa Allore's murder part of a larger string of killings? Was the killer ever found? Or is the mystery still unsolved? What do you think happened? Could justice have been served earlier? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more true crime stories.